Hello everyone, I hope you feel good and ready. So, every computer program has two primary parts. One is data and the other is functionality. Excuse my handwriting, I know it's not great. So, functionality meaning some behavior. You want your program to do something, and data, you usually want some behavior or doing something on the data. So this data is very important. Now, why is it important? Your computer hardware or your hardware architecture understand some of the basic data types. We call them primitive data types. So primitive data types like, say, an integer like 5, a float like 2.5, a character like A or Z. And remember, when you want to show characters, you use single quotations like this. Of course, in Python and modern languages, it doesn't matter if you use double quotation or single quotation, but I want you to learn it from an engineer's perspective. Anyway, so these are some of the data types. We can include strings here. Strings are not primitive, but just to have them here, like hello. Basically, when we get an array, a group of characters, and put them together, we have strings. Why is it important that your computer hardware know these? Or let's forget the hardware and focus on the compiler like Python or PHP or C# or whatever. Why does it need to know the data type? Let's say you say 5 plus 2. Okay, we call this an operator. The answer would be 7. What if I say 5 plus A? What does that mean? Well, technically it has no meaning because you cannot add an integer to a character or subtract or multiply or whatever. So in order for the compiler to understand what to do with the operators, data types come in, and you need to be very specific so the computer knows what to do with it. The other point that I want to make, we call these primitive data types. So do we have other data types? Let's just say you have a file, whatever file. Say this is an image or an HTML file or a text file. I can read this HTML file and save it into a variable. So basically this whole file will be saved into a variable called A. But is this primitive? Meaning, does your hardware understand what a file is? No, it doesn't. You need an operating system like Windows and a compiler to tell the hardware what this file is. So granted, in the end, this file breaks into primitive data types, okay? But for you to work with it, you need to save it into a simple variable and start processing it. So that's why we say primitive data types are understandable by the hardware, and these kind of complex data types, they are not understandable by the hardware. And we call these objects. You'll see later that in programming languages like Python, usually most modern programming languages, everything you see is an object. Meaning, if you say b equals 7, b is an object. It's not a variable. But again, from an engineer's perspective, for now, I want you to learn like that. In future videos, we'll see that everything is an object, because that's just easier and you can have a lot more capabilities. Okay, so to summarize, let's get rid of this. We'll say in Python we have data types like integer, like a string, which again, this is not primitive, like float, like double. Double is float but with higher precision. Integer is a simple number. A string would be one or more characters. Float would be a floating point number, and double is the same as float, but it has a very high precision, like 5.00123 and you can go on, you know. Google it and you'll see how much precision it has. Now let's go see them in the action. So I bring VS Code. Let's declare three variables. A equals 5, B equals 2.5 or 3.5, and Z equals hello. Now, how can I see what type of data they are? You can use a function, which we'll talk about functions later, built into Python, which can give you everything you need. So say print, the function name is type, and give it A. I'm going to copy this line, B, and Z. So let's hit F5 to run the program. And if you look at here, we have class int for integer, class float, and class str for a string. So therefore, whenever you have data in your program, that data has a type. So again, why is this important? Let's print something else. Print, say A plus Z. A plus Z. A is an integer, 5, and Z is hello. Let's hit F5. And as you can see, I have a compile error. It says unsupported operand types for plus, int and str, meaning this operator, these are called operands like A and Z, and this is called an operator. So it says the operator plus cannot have an integer and a string added together. And it completely makes sense because there is no meaning. So in future videos, we'll talk a lot more about this, and you'll see you can create your own types, which is actually the philosophy of object-oriented programming. Cheers.